I'd been locked in the dark for so long, I'd lost track of time. The door finally opened, and the light was a physical blow. Cassandra Thorne walked in. She was dressed in all black, a silhouette against the blinding doorway, and she wore that smile, the one that terrified me.
"Ethan?"
She said, her voice a low murmur.
"Still so stubborn."
She crossed the room and lifted my face with her hand. Her touch was cold. I twisted my head away, refusing to look at her.
"What is the matter? Is this all the fight an Aegis agent has left?"
She taunted. Her fingers tightened, forcing my chin back toward her. I clenched my jaw. "Cassandra, if you're going to kill me, just do it! Cut the theatrics!"
"Kill you?"
She leaned in, her breath ghosting across my skin.
"That would be letting you off easy. No, I want you to stay with me. Willingly."
I let out a harsh laugh. "In your dreams!" She abruptly let go and turned toward the door.
"Bring her in."
Two of her syndicate guards dragged a woman into the room. My eyes widened. It was Chloe Bennett, a junior agent for my unit.
"Ethan!"
She cried out, her face bruised and swollen. Cassandra watched my reaction, a slow, satisfied smile spreading across her lips. "Let her go!" I lunged, but the heavy chains holding me to the wall pulled me up short. Cassandra strolled over to Chloe, tilting the younger woman's chin up with a single finger.
"Now, Ethan, tell me, where should I start?"
"Cassandra, damn it!" I snarled, the words tasting like acid. "This is between us! Leave her out of it!" "Out of it?" She spun back to me, her eyes flashing. "Then why did you come after me in the first place? You knew exactly who I was, the leader of the syndicate. Why pretend to care about me? Why get into my head?" I had no answer. It had been an assignment. I went undercover, posing as a rogue operative to get close to her. I thought I could gather the intel and get out clean. I never imagined it would come to this. I was just following orders, I said, my voice barely a whisper. Her expression darkened. Following orders? So all those things you said to me, they were all lies. I couldn't meet her eyes. Some of it had been real, but I could never admit that. Cassandra suddenly laughed, a chilling sound that echoed in the stone room. "Fine, that's fine," she said, waving a hand dismissively. "Take Miss Bennett downstairs. Make sure she's comfortable." "No," I yelled. "Cassandra, please don't hurt her." She arched an eyebrow. "That's not how you beg." I dropped my head, the fight draining out of me. "Please." "Not good enough," she said, drawing out the words. "I want to hear you say it. I want you to tell me, with all your heart, that you're willing to stay with me." Chloe struggled against her captors. "Ethan, don't you dare listen to her. I'd rather die." With a flick of her wrist, Cassandra sent a pulse of energy that knocked Chloe unconscious. "Chloe," I roared, rattling the chains until my wrists were raw. Cassandra stood before me again. "It's your choice, Ethan. Her life, or your freedom." I closed my eyes, my heart feeling like it was being torn in two. Finally, the words forced their way out. "I'll do it. I'll stay." Cassandra's smile was both beautiful and monstrous. "See? That wasn't so hard." She motioned for her guards to take Chloe away, get her medical attention, then drop her back on Aegis territory. I breathed a sigh of relief, but I knew this was far from over. Cassandra unlocked my chains, and my body immediately gave out. I collapsed to the floor, my limbs numb from being held in one position for so long. She knelt beside me, her fingers stroking through my hair. "From now on, you belong to me." I jerked my head away from her touch. "This is just a deal." Her eyes went cold. She grabbed my wrist, her grip like steel. "I'll make you mean it." The days that followed were a blur of gilded captivity. I was kept in her penthouse suite, a palace of glass and steel overlooking the city. She gave me the finest clothes, the best food, but I was never, ever out of her sight. Every day, she asked the same question. "Ethan, do you love me?" And every day, my answer was the same. No. Each time I said it, she found a new way to torment me. Sometimes it was a syndicate serum that set every nerve in my body on fire while leaving me paralyzed. Other times, she would lock me in a sensory deprivation chamber until I was gasping for air, my mind fracturing. But the worst was when she'd bring in Aegis agents who'd try to rescue me, and she would break them right in front of my eyes. Why won't you just say it? She demanded one day, pinning me against a wall of windows. The city lights a dizzying galaxy below us. I looked into her obsessive, desperate eyes and suddenly felt a wave of pity. Cassandra, you can't force someone to love you. Something flickered in her gaze. I don't care. I just need you here with me. Forever. That night, she came to my room, drunk on whiskey. It was the first time I had ever seen her look vulnerable. Ethan, she mumbled, slumping against my shoulder, her voice thick. Why can't you smile at me like you used to? I froze. The ruthless matriarch of the syndicate was, in that moment, just a broken woman. But I said nothing. She suddenly pulled back, her eyes clearing with a frightening intensity. Still nothing. I remained silent. She smiled, and a deep sense of dread washed over me. Fine, then I'll take you somewhere. She dragged me down to the syndicate's holding cells in the building's sub-basement. And there, in one of the cells, was the last person I expected to see. Leo Sterling, my mentor, my commanding officer. Ethan, what are you doing here? Leo asked, shocked. His gaze shifted to Cassandra. You witch, what have you done to him? Cassandra wrapped an arm around my waist, pulling me close. He's mine now, she purred. Leo's eyes widened in disbelief. Ethan, is that true? Did you turn on us? I shook my head frantically. No, Leo, it's not like that. She's forcing me. Cassandra's arm tightened. Oh, so, if I were to kill your precious mentor, would you hate me for it? My entire body went rigid. Cassandra, don't. She tilted her head. Beg me. I saw the betrayal in Leo's eyes, and it felt like a knife in my gut. Please, I whispered. Cassandra smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Instead of releasing him, she signaled her guards to begin their work. I had to watch as they tortured the man who had been like a father to me, and I was powerless to stop it. Say you love me, Cassandra whispered in my ear, and I'll let him go. I gritted my teeth. Never. Leo suddenly cried out, his voice strained but clear. Ethan, don't give in. I'd rather die than see you break. Cassandra's expression hardened. She flicked her fingers, and the guards intensified the torture. That's when I finally broke. Stop. I'll say it. I love you. Cassandra, I love you. The cell fell silent. A brilliant, genuine smile lit up Cassandra's face. It was a look of pure joy, one I'd never seen on her before. She waved her hand, and the guard stopped. You should have just said so from the start. Then, right in front of Leo, she pulled me into a deep, possessive kiss. I closed my eyes, and a wave of humiliation burned through me. When it was over, she kept her word and let Leo go. But I knew this was just the beginning. Back in the penthouse, I shoved her away. Are you satisfied? She nodded, that smile still on her face. Very. I couldn't take it anymore. I raised my hand to strike her, but she caught my wrist with lightning speed. Don't forget, Ethan, she said softly. Chloe may be safe for now, but I can always bring her back. I froze. You promised you'd leave her alone. I did, she said, her thumb tracing my cheekbone. But I'm not above breaking a promise if you misbehave. From that day on, I learned to play the part. I told her I loved her every morning. I even started to feign affection. Cassandra was happy, and the leash she kept me on began to loosen. But in my heart, I knew it was all a lie. I was just biding my time, waiting for the one chance I needed to escape for good. Then one day, I noticed how pale she looked. She was always taking pills when she thought I wasn't looking. When I asked, she'd just say they were vitamins. It wasn't until I overheard her doctor speaking to her in the hall that I understood. Ma'am, the internal damage can't be ignored any longer. If you don't treat it with a compatible life force infusion, I'm afraid. Cassandra cut him off, her voice like ice. Be quiet. Ethan is not to know. I stood frozen in the doorway. Internal damage? What was he talking about? I did some digging through her private network and found it. The report from my assassination attempt. My blade had done more damage than I knew, leaving behind a wound her own syndicate healers couldn't fix. She had been suppressing it this whole time with unstable tech and sheer force of will. So that was it. Her obsession with my love. It wasn't just about possession. She needed me. The energy signature of an Aegis agent, bonded by a true emotional connection, was the only thing that could heal her. That night, my mind was a chaotic mess. When she came to bed, she asked her usual question. Ethan, do you love me? This time, I didn't answer right away. The light in her eyes began to fade. Still no. I looked at her pale face, the dark circles under her eyes. Your injury? I asked. How bad is it? She jerked her head up, shocked. You know. I nodded. Why did you hide it from me? A bitter smile touched her lips. What good would telling you do? It's not like you would have willingly saved me. I fell silent. She was right. If I hadn't known the truth, I wouldn't have. But now, let me heal you, I said. She stared at me, astonished. You do that? I nodded. On one condition. What is it? When you're healed, you let me go. The hope in her eyes died. You still want to leave that badly? I looked away. Cassandra. We were never meant to happen. She was quiet for a long time. Finally, she nodded. Fine. I agree. The healing process worked. My energy was a perfect match for hers, knitting together the damaged tissue and restoring her strength. When it was done, she held up her end of the bargain. She handed me a key card that would grant me access out of the building. You can go now, she said, her back to me, her voice flat. I stood there for a moment, an unexpected ache in my chest. Take care of yourself, was all I could manage to say. Just as I turned to leave, I heard her whisper, Ethan, if you could do it all over again, would you still have chosen to meet me? I didn't answer. I just walked away, stepping out onto the cold city street. I took a deep breath of free air, but for some reason, all I felt was empty. Back at the Aegis compound, everyone was ecstatic to have me back. Chloe and Leo were there, celebrating my return, but my mind was elsewhere. One afternoon, Leo cornered me. Ethan, be honest with me. You fell for her, didn't you? What? No, of course not. I said too quickly. Leo just sighed. Then why do you keep staring out at the city skyline, in the direction of her tower? I had no answer. That night, I had a dream. I saw Cassandra, covered in blood, asking me, Ethan, did you ever love me at all? I woke up in a cold sweat. Suddenly, I felt it, a faint, familiar energy signature from the syndicate. I raced outside, but there was no one there, only an envelope on the ground. I tore it open. Inside was a single, typed line. Ethan, I'm pregnant. It was my child. I stood there, stunned, the world tilting on its axis. Just then, the sound of a fight erupted from a nearby alley. I ran toward the noise and saw her. Cassandra, surrounded by a squad of Aegis enforcers. She was clearly outmatched, fighting defensively. Syndicate filth, your reign of terror ends tonight, one of the enforcers shouted. Without a second thought, I moved, placing myself between them and Cassandra. Stop. She's pregnant. Everyone froze. Even Cassandra looked at me, her eyes wide with shock. The enforcers exchanged uncertain glances before finally retreating. I turned to Cassandra. Why didn't you tell me? She gave a short, bitter laugh. And what? You would have stayed for me then. I didn't answer. The light in her eyes dimmed. I thought not. She turned to leave, but I grabbed her arm. Where are you going? She looked back at me. Back to the syndicate. Ethan, since you don't love me, just let me go. I looked into her eyes and realized, with a terrifying clarity, that I didn't want to let her go. I didn't care about the Aegis or the syndicate or any of it. Why else would I have jumped in front of armed agents to save her? Why else would my first instinct be to protect her and our child? But the words still wouldn't come. As I stood there, hesitating, a flash of silver cut through the air. An ambush. My body reacted before my mind could. I spun, shoving Cassandra behind me as a blade sank deep into my shoulder. Cassandra cried out my name, whirling around and disabling the attacker with a brutal efficiency. She caught me as I stumbled, her voice trembling. Ethan, are you okay? Looking into her terrified eyes, I finally let the truth come out. Cassandra, I gasped, the pain a dull throb. I think I'm actually in love with you. She froze, and then tears welled in her eyes. What did you say? Say it again. Ignoring the fire on my shoulder, I looked her straight in the eye. I love you, Cassandra Thorne. She collapsed against me, holding me tight. But just as I wrapped my arms around her, a sharp, cold pain erupted in my chest. I looked down. A small, elegant dagger was buried to the hilt in my chest, and her hand was on the grip. She looked up at me, her face a mask of crazed, triumphant love. Ethan, if you love me, she whispered, then you'll stay with me forever. I stared at her, my mind reeling in disbelief. What? She leaned close, her lips brushing my ear. Because I can't risk you leaving me again. My vision blurred. The last thing I saw was her beautiful, broken face, her eyes filled with a love so deep it had become poison. When I woke, I was strapped to a bed carved from a single slab of obsidian. My arms and legs were bound by soft, black silk restraints. A thick bandage was wrapped around my chest, a dull ache radiating from the wound beneath. Cassandra was sitting beside the bed, gently dabbing my forehead with a cool, damp cloth. "You're awake," she said, her tone utterly calm, as if she hadn't just tried to murder me. I struggled, but the restraints held firm. "Cassandra, are you insane?" I yelled, my voice hoarse. "Why would you do that to me?" She set the cloth aside and leaned over me. "Because you said you love me, Ethan, and if you love me, you'll stay with me. Always." I was lying. I shouted, the words desperate and reckless. The warmth vanished from her eyes. Lying. I regretted it instantly, but it was too late. She stood and retrieved a small vial from a nearby table. "It doesn't matter, Ethan," she said softly. "I have ways of making you tell the truth." She pinned me with one hand, pried my jaw open with the other, and poured the vial's contents down my throat. I choked and sputtered, but the liquid was already working its way into my system. "What was that?" I demanded, fear coiling in my gut. She smiled. "Something to help you be honest." A strange heat spread through my body, and my thoughts grew hazy. Cassandra's voice seemed to come from a great distance. "Ethan, do you love me?" I fought it, clamped my jaw shut, but the drug was too strong. My mouth opened against my will. "Yes." A look of pure satisfaction crossed her face. "There. That's my good Ethan." I hated my own weakness, and I hated that goddamn serum more. For days, it was the same routine. She would dose me, ask me the question, and I would be forced to give the answer she wanted. Each time the drug wore off, the rage and helplessness grew stronger. One day, after giving me the serum, she unfastened the restraints. "Get up, Ethan. I'm taking you somewhere." I moved like a puppet, the drug robbing me of my will. She led me to a rooftop garden, a hidden oasis of black roses blooming under the perpetual twilight of the city. "This is the anniversary of the day we first met," she said, plucking a rose and tucking it into the lapel of my shirt. "Do you remember?" I remembered through a fog. I was undercover as an arms dealer, trying to get close to her at a gala. She had been drawn to my defiance, and I had been focused on finding a weakness in her operation. "You gave me a red rose," she reminisced, her eyes soft with the memory. "You said it matched my lips." The drug forced the truth from me. It was part of the mission. Her face hardened instantly. "The mission," she repeated, grabbing the front of my shirt. "So everything you said, every single word, it was all a lie?" I couldn't stop the words from spilling out. "Not all of it. Some of it was real." Her grip loosened slightly. "What was real?" I tried to stay silent, but it was impossible. "The way your eyes lit up when you laughed. I like seeing you smile." She stared at me. Then her hand fell away, and she gently touched my cheek. "Then why did you try to kill me?" "Because you're the head of the syndicate. And I'm an Aegis agent." She was quiet for a long time after that, before leading me back to the room. She didn't give me the serum that night. When I woke up, clear-headed, the memory of what I'd said made my stomach clench with shame and anger. Cassandra came in with a bowl of soup. "Eat something." I turned my head away. She sat on the edge of the bed and held a spoonful to my lips. "Come on, open up." I kept my mouth shut. She sighed. "Ethan, what you said today, it made me happy." That was the drug talking. She shook her head. "The serum only makes you tell the truth. It doesn't create feelings that aren't there." I had no response to that. She offered the spoon again. "Please, just eat." Reluctantly, I opened my mouth. She smiled as she fed me, and for a fleeting, dangerous moment, I felt a flicker of warmth. Then I remembered. This was my captor, the woman who had hurt me, betrayed me, and bound me to her. A few days later, my wounds had mostly healed. Cassandra stopped restraining me and allowed me to move freely within the penthouse, though her guards were always a discreet distance away. I tried to find out what was happening in the outside world, but her staff was loyal to a fault. Then, one afternoon, a new maid I didn't recognize hurried past me in the hall. As she did, she pressed a folded piece of paper in my hand and disappeared. Back in my room, I unfolded it. It was a message from the Aegis. They had a plan to extract me. I just had to be ready. My heart hammered in my chest. Freedom. Finally. But the thought of leaving Cassandra left a strange, hollow feeling inside me. That evening, she came to find me, looking happier than I'd seen her in weeks. "Ethan, the baby kicked today," she said, taking my hand and placing it on her stomach. I felt a tiny, fluttering movement against my palm and froze. Our child was in there. "Ethan," she said, leaning her head on my shoulder. "What should we name the baby?" Without thinking, I answered, "If it's a boy, Aaron. It means strong." She looked up at me, her eyes shining. "You wanted to have your family name?" I realized what I'd said and immediately shut my mouth. But she was beaming. "Aaron, I love it. And if it's a girl, maybe Hope." Seeing that rare, unguarded smile on her face filled me with a sudden, sharp guilt. The Aegis was coming for me, and here I was, naming our child with my kidnapper. I didn't sleep at all that night. The next day, Cassandra announced we were going to the rooftop Nexus to perform a blessing for the baby. I knew this was it. This had to be the opportunity the Aegis was waiting for. On the way up, my nerves were shot. Cassandra seemed to sense it, her hand tightening around mine. "You seem on edge today, Ethan," she said quietly. "Just tired," I lied. She gave me a long, searching look but didn't press the issue. The Nexus was an open-air chamber at the very peak of the tower, a place of quiet, solemn power. Cassandra led me to the center and began the ritual. Halfway through, an explosion rocked the floor below. "Protect the matriarch," the guard shouted. A team of black-clad figures stormed the Nexus, engaging the Syndicate guards in a chaotic firefight. I recognized their movements. It was an Aegis strike team. "Ethan, over here," Leo yelled from the doorway. I looked at Cassandra. She was calm, directing her guards with deadly precision. "Ethan," she turned to me then, her expression unreadable. "Are you leaving?" I hesitated. "Ethan, now? We don't have time," Leo shouted again. Cassandra gave a small, sad smile. "Go on, Ethan. Go back to your people." "Stay here, stunned." "Go," she said, turning away. Before I changed my mind, gritting my teeth, I ran toward Leo. But just as I reached the edge of the platform, I heard Cassandra cry out in pain. I spun around. An arrow was protruding from her side. She was collapsing into the arms of one of her guards. I stopped dead in my tracks. "Ethan, let's go," Leo urged. I looked at Cassandra's pale face, at the way her hand instinctively went to protect her stomach, and I made my choice. I ran back to her side. "Ethan," Leo's voice was a mixture of shock and fury. Cassandra looked up at me, bewildered. "Why did you come back?" I supported her, holding her steady. "Don't talk. Save your strength." I looked over at Leo. "I'm sorry. I can't leave her." The look on his face was one of profound disappointment. He gave a sharp signal, and the Aegis team retreated. Cassandra leaned against me, her breathing shallow. "Why didn't you go?" I was silent for a moment. "Because you're carrying my child," I said. The light in her eyes faded. "Just because of the baby?" I didn't answer. She closed her eyes and said nothing more. Back in her medical suite, the doctor treated the wound. It wasn't deep, but Cassandra remained silent and withdrawn. I stayed by her bed, unsure of what to say. That night, she finally spoke. "You could have left, Ethan." "I know," I said quietly. "So why did you stay?" she asked, her eyes searching mine. I looked away. "I told you. The baby." She suddenly grabbed my hand, her grip surprisingly strong. "Look at me and say it." I met her gaze. "Because of the baby." She stared at me for a long moment, then let go and turned her back to me. "Then go. I don't want to see you again." I was stunned. "What?" I said, "Get out." Her voice was ice. "If you're only staying out of pity, then I don't need you." I didn't move. She sat up abruptly, her face twisted in pain. "Get out." I turned and walked to the door, but as I reached for the handle, I heard a choked sob. I don't know why, but I went back. She looked up, her face streaked with tears. "What are you doing here?" I reached out and wiped a tear from her cheek. "Because I want to be here." She threw her arms around me and cried, her whole body shaking. For the first time, I held her back. We talked for hours that night. She told me about her childhood, about being groomed to lead the Syndicate, about learning to use cruelty as a shield for her own fear. I told her about the strict code of the Aegis, my own ambitions, and the conflict that had been tearing me apart. It felt like we were back at the beginning, before the lines were drawn, before we were enemies. But peace is a fragile thing. The next day, the Syndicate's Council of Elders demanded an audience with Cassandra. They wanted me executed. Matriarch, he is an agent of the Aegis, a viper in our nest. Cassandra's voice was cold steel. He is my consort and the father of my heir. Touch him, and you answer to me. The elders backed down, but their resentment was palpable. After they left, I told her, "You don't have to do this." She took my hand. "Ethan, I would fight the whole world for you." My heart warmed at her words, but a sense of dread followed close behind. A few days later, a rebellion broke out on the Syndicate's southern border. Cassandra had to go deal with it herself. Before she left, she made me promise not to leave the tower. I agreed, but the day after she was gone, I got an anonymous message. Chloe Bennett had been captured again. She was being held in the sub-basement cells. I couldn't sit back and do nothing. I knew it could be a trap, but I had to get her out. I slipped down to the cells and found her, just as the message said. She was badly beaten. "Ethan, how did you?" "No time to talk. I'm getting you out of here," I said, working on her restraints. But as we neared the exit, a dozen Syndicate guards surrounded us. And stepping out from the shadows, her face a mask of thunderous fury, was Cassandra. She was back early, her tactical gear still stained with dust and blood. "Ethan," she said, her voice dangerously calm. "You broke your promise." Cassandra stood at the mouth of the corridor, her eyes so cold they burned. "Is this what my trust is worth to you?" she asked, her voice quiet, which was far more terrifying than if she had been screaming. I tried to explain. "Cassandra, Chloe is my friend. They were going to kill her. I couldn't just. So you went behind my back? You snuck into my prison." She advanced on me, each step deliberate and menacing. "Ethan, I have given you so many chances." Chloe scrambled to stand in front of me. "You monster! Don't you hurt him!" Cassandra didn't even look at her. A wave of force emanated from her hand, and Chloe was thrown against the far wall, slumping to the ground unconscious. I rushed toward Chloe, but Cassandra grabbed my arm, her grip unbreakable. "Worried about her?" she sneered. "You should be worried about yourself." She dragged me back to the penthouse and threw me onto the bed. "Cassandra, just listen to me." She wasn't listening. She bound my hands and feet with a now familiar black silk. "I'm done listening to your lies, Ethan." She went to her cabinet and retrieved the small, crystalline vial. I shook my head, my blood running cold. "No, not that again, please." She pinned my head with one hand. "You don't get to choose anymore." The serum burned as it went down, and the world began to warp at the edges. When the drug took hold, she began her interrogation. "Do you love Chloe Bennett?" I fought to lie, but my body betrayed me. "No, I don't." "Do you love me?" The struggle was monumental this time, a war inside my own mind, but the serum won. "Yes." A flicker of triumph crossed her face before it hardened again. "Then why do you keep betraying me?" The drug ripped away my defenses, exposing the deepest, most terrified part of myself. "Because I'm afraid. Afraid of what it means to love you. Afraid of betraying everything I've ever known." Cassandra froze, her hand falling away from my face. "What did you say?" The confession poured out of me, uncontrolled. "I fell in love with you a long time ago, but I'm Aegis. I can't love the matriarch of the Syndicate." She just stared at me, her expression a maelstrom of conflicting emotions. Suddenly, she gasped, her hands flying to her stomach as her face went white with pain. "Cassandra, what's wrong?" I yelled, forgetting I was tied down. "The baby." She grunted, her voice strained. "I think it's coming. Early." Panic seized me. "Someone get the doctor." But she shook her head, fumbling for another vial. "First, the antidote." Her hands trembling, she managed to pour the antidote into my mouth before pressing the button on her nightstand to summon her medical team. As the serum's effects receded, my own panic intensified. The doctors rushed in and helped Cassandra into the adjoining medical suite. I was left behind, still tied to the bed. "Let me go. I need to be with her." I shouted. A maid scurried in and untied me. "The matriarch's orders, sir. She wants you with her." I burst into the suite to find Cassandra on a birthing bed, her face slick with sweat. She saw me and reached out a weak hand. "Ethan, I rushed to her side and took it. I'm here. The labor was long and agonizing. I never left her side, my own heart clenching every time she cried out in pain. Finally, the sharp cry of a newborn filled the room. It's a boy, the head physician announced. But in the next moment, Cassandra began to hemorrhage. We're losing her. Her pressure is dropping fast. I squeezed her hand, my voice cracking. Cassandra, stay with me. Please. She was ghostly pale, but she managed a faint smile. Ethan, what you said before, was it true? I knew what she was asking. It's true, I said, my voice thick with emotion. I love you. I've loved you for a long time. A tear slid down her temple. Good, to finally hear it. From you. The medical team worked frantically, but it was no use. I knelt by her bed, a kind of fear I had never known consuming me. Cassandra, don't leave me, I begged. Don't leave us. We have a son. She shook her head slightly. I am sorry. Ethan, for everything I did. To you. I kissed her hand. It doesn't matter. I forgive you. Just live. Please, just live. She smiled one last time, a peaceful, tired smile, and then her eyes drifted shut. Cassandra! I screamed. The physician checked her pulse and slowly shook his head. She's gone. The blood loss was too severe. We did everything we could. I gathered her cooling body into my arms and wept. It was only then, in the crushing silence of her absence, that I finally understood how completely I loved her. This fierce, broken, obsessive woman who had turned my world upside down. A week later, I stood before Cassandra's grave, holding our son. The syndicate elders stood behind me, their demeanor now respectful. Mr. Vance, one of them said, according to the matriarch's final directive, you are now the acting leader of the syndicate. I shook my head. This isn't my world. I'm taking my son back to the Aegis. The elders exchanged uneasy looks, but didn't argue. At least honor her by completing the 7 days of mourning. I agreed. On the 7th night, as I was standing vigil, I heard a familiar voice from the shadows behind me. In such a hurry to run away with my son, I whipped around. Bathed in moonlight, pale but very much alive, stood Cassandra. You're not dead, I whispered, my mind unable to process it. She smiled. Did you really think I'd go down that easily? It was just a little test, to see what you'd say when you thought I was gone. A white-hot rage surged through me. You lied to me again. She stepped closer, reaching up to cut my face. But this time, I heard what I needed to hear. I should have pushed her away. I should have walked out. Instead, I pulled her into a desperate embrace. Don't you ever do that again, I choked out. I really thought I'd lost you. She held me just as tightly. I am sorry, Ethan. I promise. That was the last time. It had all been a ploy. The hemorrhage, the doctors, her death, a perfectly orchestrated play to get to the truth of my heart. Why? I asked, pulling back to look at her. Because I had to be sure, she said, her eyes searching mine. I had to know that you loved me, not just the mother of your child, and that you weren't just staying out of guilt. She confessed that hearing my real confession had changed something in her. She knew she couldn't keep me as a prisoner anymore. You're free, Ethan. Genuinely free. You can take our son and go back to the Aegis. I looked at her in astonishment. You'd really let me go? She nodded, though her eyes were glistening with unshed tears. Love isn't a cage. I finally understand that. The next morning, I stood at the edge of syndicate territory with our son in my arms. Cassandra was there to see me off, her composure a fragile mask. Name him Aaron, she said. Like you wanted. I walked over to her. Don't you want to hold him? She took the baby from me with reverent hands, pressing a soft kiss to his forehead. Then she handed him back. Go, before I regret this. I turned and took a few steps, but then I stopped. I looked back at the woman in black, standing alone at the gate, trying so hard not to cry. And I walked back. Cassandra, I said, my voice steady. Will you come with me? Her eyes widened. What? Come back with me. We can be together. She shook her head. The Aegis would never allow it. Then let them try and stop me, I said, my voice filled with a certainty I had never felt before. I'm not leaving you again. Tears finally spilled down her cheeks as she collapsed into my arms. In the end, Cassandra abdicated her leadership of the syndicate, placing it in the hands of a trusted council. She came back with me. The Aegis was in an uproar at first, but faced with our unshakable resolve, and the presence of our son, they eventually, grudgingly, came to accept it. We built a new life for ourselves in a quiet house on the neutral ground between the two territories, a place that belonged to neither and both. Cassandra learned, slowly, to love without chains and without fear. One night, as we watched our son sleep, she asked me the question that had started it all. "Ethan, do you regret meeting me?" I looked at her, at the woman I had once sworn to destroy and now couldn't live without, and I answered with the simplest truth I knew. "Never." She smiled, and it was the warmest, most beautiful smile I had ever seen. Our love was born from darkness and deception, but in the end, it was the only thing that had truly set us free.